Hey, what's up, everybody? Brennan Morse here for Red State. Despite the fact that 2024 is actually pretty far away still, the media is acting like it's just around the corner. And that means that they're going to start launching attacks on people that they think are threats to them. Naturally, they're going to attack Trump. Trump is someone that they are absolutely horrified by. They are scared of the guy. And for good reason. For good reason. He has the ability to convince people to vote for him. He seems uncouth. He seems rude. He has an insult for everybody he meets. But despite all that, he seems to strike a chord with working Americans. They love what he has to say. And on top of that, he had a record to back it up the last time. So naturally, they're going to go after him with everything they have, and they have been, 100%. But still, regardless of everything that they've tried, people still seem to like him, especially in the GOP. The GOP still has a huge support base for Trump. Massive. He will be a threat to them come 2024. But the other person that they are threatened by is Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, who had an amazing showing during the midterms. His state went red, blood red, if you will. And a lot of it's because they really like Ron DeSantis' leadership style, and they should. Ron DeSantis is one of those guys who isn't afraid to take on anybody. He'll pick fights with anyone. If anyone tries to start anything, he might not shoot first, but he'll draw first blood. All right. He's had people like Disney, that mega corporation, back down from him after he slapped them silly. He goes after corrupt politicians within his own state. He'll fire them. He doesn't care. And people love that about him, which makes the left fear him. So naturally, they're going to start trying to attack him. But the issue is there's not really a lot of stuff to attack DeSantis on, especially if you're trying to convince conservatives. Conservatives overwhelmingly love DeSantis. So what do? What if you're the media, you're looking for a way to make DeSantis look bad in the GOP or maybe lessen the enthusiasm over him? What do you do if you have nothing? Well, you start beginning to launch attacks on his character, naturally. But there's not really much to attack there, according to the media. So they have to reach for whatever they can get. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel. What do? They do this. Just wait until you get to know Ron DeSantis. This is from The Atlantic. I'm not going to read you the entire article because the entire article is just silly. But I am going to read you this part. Yes, it really just kind of sums up the article. You don't have to go much further than this. The question is whether DeSantis' presidential hopes will perish as he starts getting out more on the Iowa, New Hampshire dating apps. People who know him better and have watched him longer are skeptical of his ability to take on the former president. DeSantis, they say, is no thoroughbred political athlete. He can be awkward and plotting, and Trump tends to eviscerate guys like that. Fair. Trump is very unforgiving. He can be just as mean to enemies as he can to friends. And people are like, well, DeSantis might be, too nice. I think DeSantis will surprise you. I've seen how he reacts to certain people in certain situations, the certain things he says. We'll see, but I think they're underestimating him here. And now we get into the quotes from people that knew him. He was standoffish in general. The Virginia Republican Barbara Comstock, a former House colleague of DeSantis's, told me. A strange, no-eye contact oddball, said Rick Wilson, a Republican media consultant. So if The Atlantic was trying to convince Republicans at this point in time that they didn't need or want to vote for DeSantis, that he was, a bad guy, they're just unenthused about him, you just lost him. Rick Wilson is not a Republican. He says that he is, but no one's fooled by this. No self-respecting conservative thinks that he's a Republican. Calling him a Republican media consultant is an insult to Republicans as it is. So smooth move, Atlantic. Smooth. You just discredited your entire article by trying to make Rick Wilson the go-to guy on DeSantis. Well done. I'd rather have teeth pulled without anesthetic than be on a boat with Ron DeSantis, says Mac Stepanovich, a Tallahassee lobbyist who set sail from the GOP over his revulsion for Trump and his knockoffs. To sum up, DeSantis is not a fun and convivial dude. He prefers to keep his earbuds in. His, quote, step away from the vehicle vibes are strong. To stipulate, none of this necessarily is necessarily disqualifying. Now, this part on the Atlantic, from the Atlantic article, is 100% true. It does not necessarily mean that DeSantis is out because he's not a cool guy. In fact, I would say that we need to stop arguing so much about the cool guy in the room. I feel like Obama ruined that for everyone. Obama was, he was the cool guy in the room. Everyone liked him. Super genial. He's the guy you could have a beer with. And then he ended up being one of the worst presidents we have ever seen in modern times. The same can be said of Joe Biden. Joe Biden looks like a dude you can sit down in a bar and listen to his stories, most of which will be lies. He'll probably be friendly. He'll put his hand on your shoulder or your leg if you're a woman, and tell you these, really folksy things. But it does not make them a good leader. Some of the best leaders, I think, that I have met personally are the ones that don't want to be there. They don't want to talk to you, okay? They're busy. And they're not trying to run a popularity contest. They're trying to run a state or a city or a county, okay? They're not there to necessarily, be your best bud. Sometimes they can come off as rude. I know for a fact that I've met Rand Paul personally at a house party, and he looked like he did not want to be there at all. He seemed exhausted at that point in time. He was running for president. He was, you'd figure that for a guy who really wanted your vote, he would be a lot more friendly, but he wasn't. He looked like this was kind of a thing he wanted to do. He had to do it. It was an obligation. But you know what? I'd still voted for him. Or I still would if he hadn't dropped out. Because I think that there are people out there who I would much rather vote for than have a beer with. That's the way the God's honest truth is. Not everybody who is friendly and wins a popularity contest is the good guy in the situation. You can watch any 80s teen movie. And that's pretty much one of the defining factors. They're popular. They're the popular kid, but they're the bad guy. So it just goes to show you that this is not an attack that is going to land well. All right? I don't care, and no voter should care, about whether or not you can have a beer with this politician, whether or not you could sit there and have a friendly conversation and invite him over for dinner to meet your daughter. Okay? That's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for are leaders. What we're looking for aren't necessarily lawmakers at this point, but law unmakers. You want people who will be able to take the fight to these people who have had years on years of authoritarianism and lawmaking under their belt to make the world exactly how they want to see it, or the country as they want to see it. And funny enough, if you look at people like Pelosi or any other corrupt politician for that matter, you'll notice that they tend to morph things for their benefit. So this isn't a country for you and me, it becomes a country for them. So I don't necessarily care if the guy who I'm voting for is going to be my best friend. He could look at me and call me a piece of trash, kick dirt on my shoes, and then walk away. So long as he is actually out there fighting the right battles and making sure that these authoritarians don't take over the country, that, these taxes are lowered and these problems are fixed. These gas prices go down, food prices go down, the economy stabilizes, then whatever. I don't care. This argument, this argument that this politician is not cool enough to be voted for is something that could only appeal to leftists who see everything as a popularity contest, who think that the cool guy in if they're a celebrity, then they're worth voting for. That's not how conservatives think. That's not how right-leaning people think in general. Well, it would be cool, don't get me wrong, to have a guy that you could sit and have a beer with and party with and have fun. I'm not electing the guy to be my best friend or the woman. I'm not electing them to be my best friend. If they're standoffish and they're rude, but they run the country well, or their state well, and they stick to the principles of freedom, then by all means, I'm still going to vote for them. This is not going to take care of DeSantis any more than they said that Trump being an a-hole was going to, cast him out. Him being an a-hole, I would argue, actually made him more qualified as president, to be honest with you. In any case, dumb attacks, and I expect them to get dumber from here. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.